Okay, welcome. Welcome, Simon.
Thank you,
Welcome,
Daniel.
everyone, to Stillness and Chaos. I've got Simon Hampel with me, a dear old friend, dear good friend. I've got Poe. Let me get Poe, Simon. I have to introduce you to Poe. Poe, he's my stuffed toy, he's my companion.
You're a Kung Fu Panda.
Yes. And, Kung Fu pandas are wise. So, in a conversation about consciousness, I think we need to have wise people around. That's not you as well. But yeah, it's also a reminder to just keep things light and, not take ourselves too seriously. Um, and yeah, I'm really happy to have you here. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Daniel. I'm the founder of Because You. I'm I truly believe that all of us are wise, creative, joyful human beings. And sometimes a mental health issue, a diagnosis, grief, emotional distress kind of clouds who we are as human beings, right? So it's my life's purpose to work with people, support people, to kind of see who you are, who we are as human beings, and thrive, and really live to our creative potential. So stillness and chaos is one of the ways I'm looking to bring this out in the world, having conversations with incredible people like Simon, really thinking about different themes, but how does well-being, inner leadership, consciousness come together in a way that can help us evolve as human beings. Um, so thank you for those who have joined. Thank you for those who will see this later on YouTube. If you have questions and comments, you can put it up, and I can show it up like this. This is a funky doodle, streaming platform that I use. So please feel free to do that. So Simon, maybe I can start. You know how I'll start? Since you've had an intense day, and since this is about consciousness, I think one of the things that has helped me raise my own consciousness is my child, and being with her has really helped me. I feel think about something that's more than myself. So I'd love to play you a
Oh, we can't hear you.
love to play you a song that I play for her quite often. Okay,
Lovely.
just a way to change the energy as well.
Oh, lovely. Thank you.
Sunday morning, up in the lamp, I think I'd take a walk in the town. Hey, 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 it's a beautiful day. I got someone waiting for me. When I see her, you know what she says. Hey, 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 it's a beautiful day. My beautiful Sunday. When you say that you love me. And you say that you love me. My, it's a beautiful day.
Love it. Thank you.
So, Simon, welcome to Stillness and Chaos. I'd love to do a quick introduction. So, Simon, you've had an incredible life. In the 20s and the 30s, probably you were an entrepreneur in multiple different fields in technology, finance, consulting. Something big happened then, and then you changed, streams, which you can tell us about. Um, then went on this journey of finding yourself a little bit through Zen monasteries and ashrams and Amazonian jungles, and then became the CEO of Right to Sight, a beautiful NGO in India, working with lots of people on blindness and avoiding that. And since then, working with lots of different people on conscious leadership, and now started SARSEN and Light, which is an incredible organization initiative looking to elevate consciousness in the world, bringing together cutting edge well-being techniques by wisdom from wisdom traditions, but also amazing practitioners, and really helping us tap into our own wisdom. right? So it's been a pleasure knowing you for the last 10 years. I think when I think about, someone who lives consciously, but also someone who just emits wisdom and joy, I kind of thought of you, right? So raising consciousness, how does it unleash wisdom and joy? I thought you'd be a perfect guest for that. So welcome, and thank you for doing this.
Pleasure. Thank you for having me.
So Simon, maybe we'll start by just okay. Hold on. Let's see how the comments come in, right? So this is how it is. So people saying that thank you, Mr. Suresh. Appreciate it. So maybe we could just start, Simon, by getting to know you a little bit. You're a multi-layered, complex person. So if you could just share, what comes to mind when you hear this.
Well, as you brought that lovely panda onto your lap, and you thought about children and playing. You know what? I have a banana next to me, which I haven't eaten yet for my lunch, and it reminds me of when I was in said Zen monastery run by a Jesuit monk Zen master down in southern India in Tamil Nadu, amazing man, Ramasamy. And he said, I think at one stage, it's probably worth every day looking in the mirror and just remembering you're completely bananas. It's like that is, I know I am. It's helpful that on this conversation today, the banana has continued the journey with me and remains at my side. I bring the banana into this conversation. Look, Daniel, I appreciate. So, and also, funny enough, I'm in the part of London where you and I first met, about 100 meters away, down in the courtyard.
Yeah.
We sat together, I don't know, 12 years ago, whatever it was, and we had a bite to eat or a tea. So sometimes we exchanged some food and liquid. So nice to feel your connection to where I'm sitting today as well. Actually, last thing I joined. I like joining dots, Daniel. So there you are. The last thing, as you know, is you've just serenaded me. I haven't been serenaded online before. Thank you very much. I take that for myself. Maybe everyone else does it. I think Suresh took it for himself.
It's only you. I don't serenade anyone. Just
no, well, but I left home to hear my lovely wife Ella. She is just learning the harmonium and playing and to sing kirtan, and she was doing that as I left, and it was such a lovely sound, and I'm really proud of her. It's lovely to bring that music into our home. So I'm noticing I left with music and I've arrived with music. There's a theme here. Otherwise, my friend, I feel well. I feel you're right. I'm sitting in a very intense moment in my life. There's a lot going on for me around the organizations that I lead and in my family. And I have I'm a 55-year-old father of 3 small children, 6, soon to be 4 on Friday and 1.5. And that in itself has many complexities and layers to it, let alone what we try and do in the world and the shape of the world as it is today. And perhaps I should contextualize a little bit about what's brought me here. Would that be helpful just to sort of describe?
Yeah, I mean, I guess where I'm going is the person you are today has been shaped by, a couple of people perhaps in your life, a couple of events, big events, something that gives us, a little bit of background into the person you are today. Yeah.
Thank you for saying that, giving that context. I would say that I was lucky to find commercial mentors, older, mainly men in my 20s and early 30s. 3 or 4 of them came into my life, and they were just guiding principles for me as I built my businesses. And I remember just enjoying sitting and listening and speaking and absorbing from them. None of them, sadly, are alive today. They all died, but they were, and no buts, and I feel like it's still with me, just in a different place. Peter, Anthony, and Norman are the 3 I'm thinking about, to name them, lovely men. And then I think in my 30s, I had a big moment at the age of 33. I lost everything I had, Daniel, and I had a lot. And that was hard because I felt guilt and shame, and I felt embarrassment, and I left the UK because I didn't feel comfortable with the pity and the sense I was receiving. It was a very strange set of emotions running through me, and I wanted to go somewhere to recover and to lick my wounds. And I went to Spain because I'd always romantically imagined Spain would look after me. I don't know how I ever had that image, but I did. And long story short, I found myself in Seville. But people, you asked about people. So I talked about these men guiding me in my 20s and early 30s as I built businesses and had offices all over the world. And then this loss. And then a real moment in time, sitting in Madrid train station 3 days after I'd arrived, having been mugged, feeling as low as I've ever felt in my life.
Wow.
And a person walked up the platform, a lady, a young lady in her probably same as me, that stage in her 20s or 30s, with a very big smile. And she just gave this energy of like, I wanted her energy. I remember thinking, God, that feels so good. I haven't got any of that. And I stopped her and I think, probably she probably thought, what's going on? This sort of vagrant bloke saying, holding
Yeah.
her for her leg. And I said, do you speak any English? Because I didn't speak any Spanish at that stage. I said, yeah, I'm German. And I said, oh, well, of course, Germans speak great English. And she laughed. It was helpful. And I said, where have you come from? And she said, Sevilla. And I said, oh, what's that like? And she said, warm, beautiful, romantic, and cheap. And she left. Never saw her again. But, that was a moment in time where I went to Seville because of that experience that lasted no more than 3 minutes. And on that day, I found a place to live, a job, and a course in Spanish. So
No
Seville
way.
opened its arms unbelievably. And I spent a year there, and I earned in a year what I paid myself in a week. And I had an amazing year. So the other thing that happened there was I had this different experience with money and resources, which was so revealing because I always thought differently to what I then experienced. And moving on from that, what then shaped me were a series of big adventures. I went out and traveled for a year after Seville across Central and South America. I had a series of amazing synchronicities. I ended up on an expedition to the jungle in the Amazon. I came back and I was asked to lead or be part of and then lead an organization doing expeditions, taking aid workers and scientists and other people away on extended journeys. But I think what was happening for me there was I was beginning to touch on connection to people and different ways of living and recognizing that you don't have to have a lot to still feel connected to life and to lead a simple and, dare I say, happy life, and without trying to form judgment around it. And I found a sense of purpose. I never had purpose before that. I was just doing things for the sake of doing it. I enjoyed it. I was building, but I wasn't purposeful. Suddenly I had purpose. It was so amazing to, build a well in Bolivia, in La Higuera, which is where Che Guevara was. Well, actually, he was killed in La Higuera, and Valle Grande is the village or town that he was buried in. And we built a well, a pipe for water that went there, and it, what an amazing thing to be part of, and the history and the stories and I found a leg of a Tyrannosaurus Rex in Mongolia that I thought was a camel, and I still have. In fact, my wife would be furious.
Of course you did. Yeah.
This is the wallet I still have. I found those bones, which as I say, thought was a dead camel, in 2003 or 4. And Altangel Perle, the leading paleontologist in Mongolia, gave me his wallet as a thank you because he realized it was the leg of a Tarbosaurus bataar, which is the equivalent of a T-Rex in Mongolia. I spent a bit of time in Ethiopia and in the Blue Nile, and I've spent some time in India and Ladakh and up in the Himalayas. So I did some really amazing stuff. My point about those experiences is connecting to community and serving and contributing. And then you talked about Right to Sight. That was a similar journey of purpose. I didn't have any idea about needless blindness, but I was asked to lead the organization so I could sort of use my commercial skills and leadership alongside my new sense of purpose. And I went to live in the hospitals in southern India with the Aravind family in Madurai and Tamil Nadu, elsewhere in Tamil Nadu, and then took that skill set to other parts of Africa actually as well. We were in Congo and Angola and Rwanda and Ethiopia and Malawi and Cameroon and South Africa and Kenya. It was amazing. And just trying to serve and contribute wherever possible. And learning, I think, there, watching dedicated people on the ground just keep going irrespective of the conditions and the challenges they had to meet. And they weren't doing it for financial reward. They were doing it because they were connected to something deeper, a sense of contribution, a sense of purpose, a sense of need to serve and to just give. It was amazing, actually. And then perhaps the last bit of that journey, I resigned for a variety of reasons, one of which was I was 42. I was kind of lonely. I was really having an amazing life, but I hadn't settled down. I didn't have a family. Everyone else was around me was settled with kids. And I thought I could keep doing this for a long time, but there was a bit of a gap opening up between me and my old life. And maybe I didn't feel that was helpful for me. I didn't want to be critical of coming home and listening to stories about people not being able to park outside their door, or newspaper not being on time, and thinking, any idea what I've just seen? So that was not helpful.
The gap was...
There was a gap there, and it was more connection. Sorry, it's correction, not connection. I definitely wasn't connecting. It was like, how dare you? So I need to let go. And I think also I'd been walkabout for nearly 9 years from leaving London. I mean, I'd been backwards and forwards, but I hadn't been settled, and I was feeling the need to create some more roots. And that's when I went and spent time in the monastery with Anasami, a Zen center, really. And he's a Jesuit monk, Zen master, amazing human being. And I had, a couple of months there, and 8 hours of meditation a day, and up to a month of silence over the 2 months. There was an extraordinary deep end experience of a subject I knew nothing about, which, when I came out of it, I certainly knew a bit more about, and I certainly felt it in my body because it nearly killed me. But I built a practice I've never lost, and for that I'm eternally grateful, because it's served me well in the last 13 years. 13 years now.
The one thing I remember about you, that first meeting, is the stories. And I was like, we can just spend the next 45 minutes just hearing your stories from different parts of the world. But I'm kind of, the one big theme that you talked about connection to people, you talked about energy, even that woman's energy. Imagine that impact it's had on you. And I think we feel that with anyone that you meet, there's a certain type of energy that you have. And you talked about purpose and believing in something deeper. And for me, in all the things that you talked about, it felt like the universe has guided you. It's been there. You've kind of lent into it in some way. I don't know if that, what comes up for you as I say that.
I've shared a few times recently that I am, at the time, it didn't seem to make any sense at all. In fact, it often made no sense to me, or particularly to people around me, going, "Why are you doing that, you idiot?" But now, Daniel, since leaving, Daniel and I were friends, great friends, are friends still through Leaders Quest, of which we're still a part of. But since I left the center of Leaders Quest a few years ago, what I've noticed is that my tributaries have all come into the same river, finally. I never understood why those things happened to me the way they did. And I feel I know my river of life now. I can see where it's heading. I certainly can't tell you the path, and I think there are many rapids and waterfalls ahead of me. This is not a free-flowing river that I can just sit gently on, dip my finger and float down.
Say more about that, because I feel you've had those tributaries. You're kind of focusing on the next phase of your life in some ways in the work. But if you just bring it back to, like you talked a lot about purpose. At this moment, what is your purpose? Why do you do what you do? Maybe share a little bit about SARSEN as well.
Yeah, of course. Listen, I learned in that monastery to meditate, which meant I learned about an inner life, an inner experience, an inner journey, an inner state I had never really thought about, considered, reflected, met, found, known, etc., etc. I learned in those first few weeks how noisy I was within, because when it's quiet outside, the noise just becomes virtually unbearable. But I also learned, and have learned since, that I have the capacity and power to both acknowledge it and to let it go. And that's amazing. So I have a much quieter day now when I go anywhere. It's not so noisy. And part of that is the practice of awareness of making me and bringing me into presence. Because if I'm present, the noise is less. If I'm worrying about what I said to Ella last night, or what we're going to feed the kids tonight, and that's where I'm sitting in this conversation, I'm not here, which means I've just got a lot going on. And if I'm not here, I can't connect to you. I can't connect to what's in front of me. I can't connect to my inner sense of why I'm here, that sense of purpose. So it's a double header. Presence is my purpose in its formity. Without being present, what's the point? You're just not there. You think you are, you're not. And then once I'm present, what is it that's within me that I can bring out to help and serve and contribute with what's in front, which may be literally just holding a quiet, silent space for something to emerge. It may be to listen and observe or comment. It may be to guide or influence. It may be to get into action and do something. I don't know, but it comes because I am present and waiting for what comes in front of me. And perhaps I should go a bit deeper. Would you like me to? I'm happy to.
Please keep going.
I feel, many commentators speak of the insanity of our current world, and the layers of that insanity, from our political discourse to our climate crisis to our ongoing wars to the huge social media challenges and anxiety and overwhelm and burnout and mental health. There's layer upon layer. They're up here, they're down here, they're in front of you, outside your front door. In the UK, we heard last week that there's a 50% increase on some form of physical harm or abuse to shop workers in supermarkets. 50% in a year. What's happening? For me, that's a microcosm of the macrocosm here. And so, all right, there's a lot challenging us, and there's probably more of it happening than ever before. And it feels like more is going to happen as life speeds up. And it feels to me, it's because we've got stuck in a form of egoic identity, individually and collectively. We're not able to understand that we're more than just this amazing ego that's so helpful and so useful and needs itself to exist for us to function as human beings. But we have a connection to life, for me, I use the word soul because it connects to something I feel within myself. And I've only in the last few years really begun to actually experience my soul. Kind of funny thing to say. It's like I knew about it and I talked about it and I sort of, but in the last few years I've begun like, oh, you're here this morning. Thank you. That's really helpful. How can I bring you more into my life? Because I know that you're going to be quite contributory. And I'm noticing that when I go into that place of soul observation and connection, and I ask myself a question, it's often answered very differently to what it would be if I just stood in my sense of ego, which is that's a thing I play with myself, but it's really revealing for me about the benefit and connection to soul, both in the practical matters of home and family and friends and colleagues, and then the bigness of life and how I come and serve and contribute from a place that feels bigger than me. And I think, and Daniel, and I could carry on to that for ages, in that place of presence, it's more available because it's what appears when ego goes quiet, comes to the surface. It's not a happy accident. It's just there waiting to say hi, and then I get creative and I get intuitive. I can feel things opening up. Doesn't mean I have all the answers. Doesn't mean I get it all right. It doesn't mean that life is any easier or better in front of me, but it means I meet it in the best way I can.
In some ways, you're talking beautifully about stillness and chaos. I'm struck by the meeting your soul, right? Because I feel, you kind of hear the Buddhist saying of, you are not your body, you are not your mind, you are not your thoughts. And then you kind of go, who am I? And it's such a deep, sometimes paralyzing question in some ways. obviously different wisdom traditions talk about it in different ways. Say more about the soul and how you like, and maybe connect it to the work with SARSEN. Because in essence, that's what you're trying to do in the work, right? It's you're trying to get people to tap into that inner calm, that inner, you know, beauty, and kind of drown out some of that external noise in some ways.
Yeah,
So maybe that would be a good connection to make at this point.
sure.
And
Happy
let's
to.
just see what's happening in the meantime. So Rich,
Hey, Richard. Nice to see
China
you
says
too.
great
It's been a
series.
long time, my friend.
I see a few other comments, some of which I can't put up here. Such an adventurous life, Simon. Someone says. So please, keep sharing comments, questions. It'll be nice. Otherwise, Simon and I just think we're,
It's just
having a
the two of us
chat.
chatting
Yeah,
away.
just the
Yeah.
two of us. So please say something if you're alive. Keep going, Simon.
Yeah, I will. And whoever wrote that, such an adventurous life. I know I do feel like I've lived more than one life in this life already, and I kind of feel I've got a few more ahead, which is poor my darling wife Ella, poor
Yeah.
her, and my children.
In
I
this
do
life,
apologize
yeah.
on air, but I do. At least I feel equipped to meet it, whatever it is. Look, Daniel. To your question, where do I want to go with that? The piece around consciousness. So we talked about the challenges in the world and the multiple layers of challenge, systemic and localized, personal. For me, there is a gap, and we talk about this. We used to in Leaders' Questions about this gap between our cleverness and our wisdom. We can't answer the challenges of the day by being cleverer. We have to find that wisdom. For me, the wisdom comes from the place of presence, comes from connecting into something bigger than yourself, albeit a soul, or into the bigness of life, and into however people describe it for themselves. We all have a different way into that conversation. But the sort of human spiritness feels real to me. We often talk about human spirit. I feel when I'm connected up that my spirit is more alive, and I'm more alive because of it. And when I'm not, I'm a duller person at every level. So the consciousness piece feels really important, and for me, if we can expand it as an individual and collectively, we have a better chance of navigating through these extraordinary times of change. And that again is the practical of how do I respond to an angry child, as much as it is how do I meet the climate crisis and not feel overwhelmed. It's exactly the same, just a different thing in front of me. And consciousness, I think, is the totality of my lived experience, 5 senses and beyond. And so for me, that I say that because I think the beyond is this idea of my soul, my intuition, my sense of energetic connection. If you walk into a room, I think we all feel this. I don't mean to place this on people, but I feel we all have had an experience of noticing someone's energy being receptive and welcoming and even expansive and inclusive and encouraging. You meet them, and other people's energy is don't come near me, and if you do, I'm going to unload. And it's felt. You cannot deny that. And I feel that's a small microcosm again of what energy truly is, because ultimately we're all vibrational beings. So going back to this 5 senses and beyond, the beyond is meeting us in a deeper, more profound place. And the more we unfold and the more we pull back the veil of that, the greater and more expansive our consciousness. So it's an ever expanding journey. Another thing I'd say is I think a lot, and this is not so much, I think SARSEN and Light is about trying to bring this to people's awareness initially and say, hey, this is an exciting territory to play in. No one wants to tell you what to do, but if you can find the connection to presence and notice why it's helpful to you in the resilience, in the connection to intuition, into the sense of relationship with what's in front of you, well, then there's lots of directions of travel you can take it. And it's not for us to tell anyone. It's just available. And for me, one of the ways that it's deepened in the last few years, Daniel, is that I'm much more aware now that what happens to me and what I'm triggered by, because we all get triggered most of the time, we get triggered. is mine to deal with. And that is just so challenging. But I say
We
that
can't even externalize it. We're like, it's their fault. No, it's
it's
mine.
them and it's him and it's
Yeah.
and you know, of course we all fall foul of it, and I do too, but I know it's mine. And I feel, as I explore this journey of revealing my soul in my lived experience, it's like that is the place I go to help me unwind and resolve that stuckness within me. So it's the beauty of knowing it exists and seeing the stuckness and then joining them together. Sometimes there's a resistance and even admitting that that possibility exists, or it takes time to let them find each other. But it's like an unwinding. That's how I see it.
Can I just so what I'm kind of, there's one layer of the philosophical, right, which is the ego. Can we move out of the ego? It's not me. There's this almost this vision or wish of saying I need to be present, and that's kind of holding that, the high bar, right? That's
Yeah.
almost intent in some ways.
Yeah.
And then we talked about the trigger, the kind of response, rather than the react. um, I'm just curious, between that, like what have you found to come back into presence when you've had that difficult conversation, you've been triggered, you've, like, because all of us do that in different ways, but I'm just
Whole
curious
time.
how
Yeah.
you. Yeah.
Well, and that's, again, thank you for asking the question, because it's core to what SARSEN and Light are trying to do, which is my practice, which happens to be meditation. And by the way, I think there are a multitude of practices out there that people can do. That the key behind the practice, word practice, is something that brings you into an awareness of presence. So it can be, fly fishing, walking in the woods, not necessarily with headphones on listening to a podcast, but actually connecting to what's around you. To run, but it can also be tapping and breath work, and it can be listening to music, and it can be having a great gratitude practice, or listening deeply. There are so many. I mean, and I think we could carry on that list for a long time. I happen to have found meditation because of my time with Amasami, and a little bit more. I do a bit of sort of yoga type, qigong type work called the 5 Tibetans. And the reason I bring that up is it's now 14 years of meditation, and it's longer of the 5 Tibetans. And that regular discipline is like a signpost. It's like an imaginary signpost that sits within me, but it also moves the wind. So when I'm not present, sometimes it just goes, and it's like, oh, it's amazing, because I'm able to notice internally that I'm not here, which I could never have done when I wasn't there before, because there's nothing to help me notice that I wasn't there. And that noticing is part of the beauty of going back into presence. So, and I've only got it by having the ability to practice enough to know how to quieten the noise, to know I'm not the noise. Because, of course, a lot of the time you feel you are that emotional state, you are those thoughts, you are those feelings. But as I've noticed I'm not, it's like, oh, great, I can come back to it. And then the other thing I'd say to a question is, I think what I'm at the early stages of this, but it's a real practice, is when I get triggered, it may sound bananas, I'll hold up the bananas to people, but I'm trying it, because when I get triggered, is to own my, no, it's me, and to say to myself, well, thank you for holding the mirror up to what's stuck inside me. I appreciate that. Not I'm furious with you. You have shown me something inside of me. If I can get there quickly enough, Daniel, I don't react, which means that the drama doesn't play out like it would do. Well, that's amazing. So suddenly it's a very different experience in front of me, because the drama's just dropped and we connect again. But also it's like me going, oh, that's interesting. And then I literally try and imagine my heart sort of folding around a stuck energy of resistance, like something that really served me for a reason before, but doesn't serve me now. It was created for a reason, and it wraps itself around, and it sort of it literally releases, unwinds it, so the energy moves into a different place. Because of course it doesn't dissolve. Energy always goes somewhere, but it does. And it becomes energizing. I feel more energetic, as if I've let a little
Yeah.
bird out of me.
I want to pick up on that point because one of the things that we can easily feel if we tap into it is our own energy and how it shifts and changes, right? So when you're triggered, you realize, if you're aware, you know that something's happening. All of us have this. If I connect it to the mental health space, now it's kind of, it's there in most places, but it's still kind of new, right? How do you use the somatic awareness? That is, how do you use the body in our mental health? What's happening within the body? Everything that you talk about, the heart and thing, it's very visceral in some ways, and you have to build the awareness of that. So like I feel similar to you. I'm in a similar space in the last 2-3 years where I'm finally saying, oh wait, something's happening, I'm being triggered, there's something happening in my body. My chest is constricting, my shoulders are tight, there's something there, the energy is stuck, how do I release it? And you talked about your practice, and I've realized that I've always held my emotion in me for so long that it feels stuck. So now I find ways to release my emotion, right? For example, in the beginning, I wasn't as present as I wanted to be with you, which is why I went to play the guitar. So I use the guitar to also release my emotion, because you can release emotion in many different ways. And the last thing that came to mind as you spoke is, this is me. This is me. There's something that I need to deal with, and there's something called the parts work, both in coaching as well as in the mental health space, which is saying that every part of us, even the difficult parts of us, which is screaming of in anger or reaction, there's something that it's telling us, right? There's something that it's almost like there are multiple parts of us, each in service of us. And if you listen really deeply to that part of you that is being triggered, there's actually something that you can learn from.
Yeah. No, a couple of things have come up for me as you speak to that. The first is, I think my body was numb. I think a number of men, not all men, but men speak about a numb body more than women do. I think my body was numb for a lot of my life. I didn't feel what we're describing, even say 10 years ago. And I actually think part of that is meeting my wife. I think I have learned from her. I wonder if she's listening to this. But I really have. I've really learned. Her body. She's an acupuncturist and a doctor of Chinese medicine, and that happened during the journey of us being together. But her body speaks, and it comes out, and it doesn't always come out easily. Sometimes it's quite challenging, but it's I have learned to realize that permission I needed to give to my own body, and it's helped me find so much more of me, and including then the stuck bits that you talk about, and the resistance, and the more difficult pieces. And I don't think I think I was also unaware of even being able to find them, because I've been quite a happy, optimistic person. Maybe I sat on the surface of those, even if I had a rather beautiful practice and the ability to meet life and be courageous and find it. I wasn't really going much deeper in. I was going more out, but not in. And I think what's happened to me more recently is it's like, oh, okay, slightly annoying. There's an awful lot of stuff in there I've got to deal with. But it's also, I'll tell you what's lovely about Daniel. I mean, it's not all lovely, but what is lovely about it is I can feel a bit more compassion for myself. It's like, oh, that's why I react the way I do, is because I didn't know it was there. It's not as if I'm deliberately deceiving myself. I just didn't even know it was there. So consciousness, there's a lack of consciousness. I don't know where it is. If I can bring my conscious awareness to it, what difference I can make to myself and those around me by being aware. So there's the piece around the awareness. And then the second side to this compassion, Daniel, is as I realized that for myself, I realized it for everyone else. It's like, you've got a load of rubbish, mate. And so's Ella, and so the kids. And so it's like, okay, that's
Yeah.
helped. We're all in the same boat. We're all
Yeah.
rowing in the same direction, probably really badly, and no one's taught us how to row. But it just me. So I've slightly fallen more in love with humanity again recently than I ever have done. It's like I feel a bit teary often when I meet people just because like, oh God, you're going through the same as me, even if you
Yeah,
can't tell me or you don't want to admit it. I just know you are.
yeah.
Anyway, there you are. So that's what came up for me as you said those things.
and and that's so beautiful, right? Because in some ways it that community, because you talked in the beginning about finding community and realizing that's really what is important for you and what's important for us. And what you just spoke about is, finding that all of us are connected in some way. The more we do the work on ourselves, we realize that there are lots of more similarities than differences. We are all interconnected. Sometimes there are two sides that makes it easier in some ways, that like misery loves company, but but also you're so much more empathetic. You can just show up and just be yourself. um, and I feel sometimes that's going back to that ego point. um, you know then it's not, you kind of say, okay, this is not them, or this is not, there's kind of where am I going? One of the things I've been thinking about is how do you connect to the essence of a person rather than the noise. um, and that I find that really interesting. That's an interesting exercise to do. um, but it also, like, it has, I really have to work on my own biases, and, like, the layers of ego that I have in myself, to kind of see the essence of the other person. um,
Can I speak to that?
yeah, of course. Wait, wait, hold that thought, okay? Don't forget it.
All right.
uh, let's see what people are saying. Grania says,
Ah, we love Grania.
um, this, I know this is Shreya. I can see it somewhere else. Your journey. Thank you both. Thank you, Shreya and Grania, for being here. Amazing that people are still around. Um, but Simon and I are just going to keep speaking. So say
No, we'll be
nice
here for
things about us.
days. Join us
Yeah,
tomorrow. We'll still be here. I've got a banana. I can go for hours.
keep going.
Listen. Oh, now I have forgotten. I'm about to say, listen, now I've forgotten what we were saying.
No.
No, I'm joking. I'm being
Okay, good.
present. So when you said about how to connect to someone's soul, or sorry, how to find
Yeah.
their essence and who they are, maybe described as soul for me. Well, the first thing is, and this is not a list of things to do, but I know I'm much more likely to find and feel it if I'm present. So if I'm not present, I miss it because I'm in myself doing my
Yeah.
lists
Yeah.
and holding my agitation and my worries. That's helpful. And then even in my presence, it's like I really, and I don't always get this right, but I'm trying more and more as I enter any situation, people, place, challenge, to come from a place of contribution. Because if you come from contribution and you're present, then I feel I lock into a sense of intuition of what's needed. And then it's just, then you listen. And if you can listen from contribution in presence, Daniel, everyone feels that. And if they feel it, you feel them because you're present and you're intuiting and you're connecting. So it's a lovely virtuous circle, but it doesn't. I know there's some people have an extraordinary presence, and you can feel it just by them coming into the room, even if you're not there,
Yeah.
because they can slightly overpower you with it. Well, that's extraordinary, but they're few and far between.
Can I say you are that person? Like, if I had to ask 20 people who know you, I would say they would say exactly the same thing. Because I feel when you are with someone, I know that you are completely with me, right? And I think that's the biggest gift that we can give anyone, that especially in this crazy world, to completely be with someone. If I just want to add one thing, you talked about presence and what it unlocks. Like, I feel for me, you talked about listening and being with another person. There's something around it unlocks creativity at a
Yeah,
beautiful level, right? Because when you're totally present and, like, you're kind of in receiving mode, and I feel, there's I just listened to something that talked about how yesterday the song by Beatles came about, and it apparently came to Paul McCartney when he was dreaming, when he was asleep, and it came as a dream. Right? I'm not saying he was the most conscious person on the planet, but there's something about being present, being open, being receiving, and it kind of unlocks creativity in a beautiful way.
I totally agree. When I say intuition, my language to myself is creativity. Intuition is the creative life force that 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 reveals what's needed in that moment, which may be the download of yesterday, or it may be just reaching out and squeezing someone's arm because they need to be, just connected to, or it could be a laugh, or you go and buy them a drink because they're desperately need one, or whatever it is. But it's and that creative pulse, you're so right. Again, is I think we can all be creative. We have a creative side to us, and some people experience it more than others in the literal sense, albeit
Yeah,
creativity comes in many forms. But my own personal creativity to meet life's challenges and find new and interesting things for myself is definitely more available when I am present.
yeah. I'd love to come back to the first thing you talked about, if you don't mind me asking. So you talked
And
about when you lost everything, right? You were really successful, businesses all over the world, over like completely lost everything. You talked about that guilt, shame, like receiving that so much sympathy and kind of getting away from that. Um, if you had to kind of go full circle back in hindsight, if you had to think about, that person you were then, how might you meet that person now with all of this wisdom and consciousness and the person you are right now?
Daniel, that's a very, as you asked me that question, I wanted to share with you. I'm happy to share with everyone. So that's the conversation we're having. In a sense, I'm not in the same position, but what we're building at the moment is beautiful and amazing, and it's in some ways landing and going very well, but in other ways it's not, and it's very hard to finance. And we're staring down the barrel of challenge that may result in, what will result in all sorts of change, which is not easy. And so I wouldn't say it's the same as last time. And last time, 20, 22 years ago. But there are common threads. So I can answer it not in the sense of
In the
looking
present.
back. I'm answering about now.
Mm.
Um, my heart's fluttering as I talk to you about it.
I'm here
I know. Um,
holding you. Yeah.
thank you, my friend. I think the first thing to speak to is that story of the tributaries becoming a river. I know this is the work I'm here to do now. I never didn't, when I was building the organizations, I was loving it, but I wasn't connected to my work like I am now. And I think that's very helpful, because if things do have to change dramatically, I'm going to stay in this space and keep trying, even if it requires a different way in. That's so that I'm proud of all we've done. I think that's important to say. Proud of the team that we are, the effort and time and resource that we put into this. Again, I don't think I felt that. I felt so shame and guilt and pity. I felt like a victim. I'm not feeling like a victim. I'm feeling like life is hard. The So much of what we're doing is difficult to land because it's at the edge of life and not everyone's prepared to even connect with it. And yet we do experience that if it's felt by people, it can really change directions of travel. And I would love to be able to bring that to more people. So I'm noticing my passion and my purpose is holding me much more in this very strong wind of change. Um, then I think there's a place of feeling, of going to my truth. It's like I have to go in to come out. I never did that before. So I'm trying to lead with that and not let the immediacy of, can I pay a salary to everyone and myself? All the things that we all have to, the day-to-day living, it's so hard. But I think you have to be transparent, open, listen, and be prepared to make choices from the right place. That's what I'm doing now. And I think when I look back on it, I wasn't equipped for any of that. I didn't have any of that. None of it. and I didn't know who to talk to, and I didn't know what to say, so I'm in such a different place now. It doesn't mean that it's going to be any better, because life is not. Even if I'm a more able person to deal with the challenges, they'll still keep coming, because that's what life's about.
Yeah.
It's how we meet them that shows our true character and form. So if that answers your question, I mean, I could carry on, but I think those are sort of first things that. Is there anything else I want to share? As I say, I know that this ability for people to build a habit and practice is such a gift in life. Preventative upstream as much as it is the immediacy of a problem. Because if we can become a bit more aware and a bit more present, we just can have a different form of relationship with so much in life, including ourselves. And that is what will continue to drive me forward, irrespective to the challenges I'm trying to meet now.
Firstly, thank you for the openness, vulnerability. Um, it's I think it's a rarity on a bearing your heart at a forum like this, and on many levels, it's like I feel a lot of people, including myself, can relate to what you're saying, right? And knowing you and knowing where you are, I think what you said about I am committed, I have, it's almost like you have a North Star. The way I'm hearing you is you have a North Star. You know that this is your life's purpose. Presence is purpose in your way, whether you do it, I mean, you're doing it individually and through SARSEN and Light, you're doing collectively in this form, but that's your North Star, and you'll continue to do that in whatever way it is. And something that's really, I've had, it's been difficult for me in many ways to run my business as well, which is floundering. But something that really helped me was one of our friends saying, when I realized my purpose, I realized I needed to take a 40-year horizon. And kind of saying, oh wait, okay, I have 40 years, maybe this what's there will kind of bloom and do amazing things, and maybe it may not, but I kind of learned from that and I build. And he said the person who is the most successful is the person who lives your purpose for the longest time. And how do you keep on that marathon and not go on the sprint?
I
So
love that.
I just want to share that because
No, I love that. That's a fun enough. I was sitting. I don't think, Adam, you're listening to this, but if you are, thank you for my coffee this morning. Adam, my local friend, and I had a coffee this morning. Wasn't really intending it. We just ended up having a coffee, and we were talking about life, and I was aware of how much I had on today, and he was telling me a little story about the fact that he dropped his phone in the street the day before, and unbeknown to him, someone had picked it up and had taken it home with them. And when he put a block on it and sent a message, he said, "Oh yeah, I've got your phone. Come and pick it up." And he was like so thankful. It was just like little bit of gratitude and thought, like, "Oh, I really love that." And the reason I bring him alive on this, Daniel, is the two things I think that come out of this work is living the purpose in the smallness of life as much as what we do. And that just sitting with Adam and having that story connected me to life and to him in a lovely way. And I told him the story of Eckhart Tolle, amazing, talks about the power of now. There you are, presence. We should bring Eckhart into the room. And he tells a great story of some guy I think he knows who won the lottery and bought a car. And of course, everyone was very pleased for him and happy. And then he crashes the car and he really hurts himself. And everyone's like, "Oh my God, poor you." And he goes to hospital. And he's in a few days. And in the time he's in the hospital, his house is washed away by a landslide, which he would have died in. So when is it a good moment and when's it a bad moment? And I think that's your story about 40 years and living. It's also, we don't know when these things are happening, what they really are. We just know them in the immediacy of what we think they are. That's the first thing I'd say. And the second thing I'd say, as I reflect on where we're at, we want to try and affect the lives of many, many people, and we've only affected the lives of a few thousand people so far. So only. That's my point. I'm noticing how our team, me and our team, all of us, and our community and our council, everyone's grown in the last year. I've watched everyone growing. That's an amazing thing to be part of. It's really exciting. And part of me is like, I don't want to let that go. I want to really help that community and that team stay irrespective, because we're all learning together in community and holding each other in that.
And I know the work that SARSEN and Light, I mean, it's incredible. I've been using it for some time now, and I think, the practitioners you've got in there, the wisdom, the techniques, just the different ways. I feel sometimes when you think about consciousness, you think about, the difficult stuff that's happening in the world as well as in your own life. It's kind of sometimes difficult and glum and paralyzing. And I feel what you brought into the world is exactly that. How can you tap into the beauty of the small stuff, the everyday stuff, but also tap into the collective, joy in the world, and doing it through beautiful practices that have, years and years, sometimes centuries of, evidence, which we've just forgotten. Um, yeah, for those who are watching, I would highly recommend the Light app. It's incredibly beautiful. Um, but I'm also, something that's coming to mind. Um, Actually, maybe I'll say this right in the end. For Simon's team, I hope it's interesting, and I'm just holding everyone in my heart as you share this. But knowing Simon as I do, I think, it's such a beautiful journey you're on. It's a gift for all of us that you're sharing from your heart. So thank you, Simon. People who are here, we've got like 4 or 5 minutes left. If you have something nice to say, please say this. Or if you have a question, please say it now, because then we're going to log off and you're never going to hear from us again. No, just kidding. Simon, maybe a last couple of questions, thoughts from you. Um, we've actually talked beautifully about everything. Maybe, yeah, actually, you know what? Let's just do this. What's your ambition for yourself at this moment?
Well, I'm going to, this summer in June in Tuscany, I'm going to do a week's inquiry into this dance, this balance between ego and soul. So it feels like I've been a bit reticent, Daniel, to come forward and speak about you wouldn't believe that listening to me bang on for hours, but I wanted to make this more about the subject matter than me. And I'm realizing there's probably a happy medium where I need to be brave enough to inquire a bit more and bring my full self to that, to be helpful. So that my ambition is to find that confidence and that delicate balance between inquiry and my own sense of what's helpful. So I'm not imposing or telling or putting myself on a pedestal. But I'm really keen to bring that to life more. And I think, Daniel, is my ambition is I said to you at the beginning, I love joining different dots. I'm really good at it. People often reach out to me and say, do you know anyone in X? And I can say yes, or I can say no, but you should meet Y. And I never really hear back, or I hear back like 3 years later, they go, hey, we're now working together. And we've got, it's like, great. And one thing I've noticed in the last couple of years with SARSEN Light is I'm beginning to meet a community of like-minded people all over the world who are either quite senior or have quite a lot of resource or influence. And I'm interested that I'm in that conversation now. And it's like, wow, how can I help bring that together in some form? It's like there's a sort of tapestry of life opening up, and I can see various ways of weaving it or putting color into it. And I want to play a bit more with that. But I also have to be practical, and we have a mortgage and all the good things that my darling daughters and son no doubt will need and want, let alone my beautiful wife. So, but I feel that is part of where I'm heading. I'm excited about that, Daniel. Either it's behind the scenes or it's more overt. I don't know, but it's something I want to do more of.
You know what comes up for me is this is your natural way of being. Both those things you said. Like I feel anyone who knows you will say, this is you. I hope you kind of see that, see in yourself what we see in you, and have that like whatever that confidence you're seeking, right? And the second thing which you talked about, the tapestry of life and making the connections and not knowing, I don't know if you know this, but one conversation we had about 8 years ago about your own journey into consciousness and spirituality triggered my journey into spirituality. And I spent time in Sadhguru's ashram, which was incredibly, transformational for me. It's taken me down this path. And even in the most difficult times, that, the, at least this work that I've been doing in the consciousness, spirituality, higher purpose space is holding me in good stead, right? So that's just one probably conversation that you've had with me, and I know that you've had, these stories are, they're everywhere in the community that you've had. So I just want to share that with you.
Thank you, Daniel. It's lovely to hear.
Okay, lovely. So you can download it. I'm sorry, Ollie. You can just, if you just go to any, whether it's a Play Store or Apple Store, you just search for Light. You can do there. Ollie, you can't put the app link in here, but you can see it. The link you can actually see in the LinkedIn comments, so that should be fine. Maybe one last question, Simon, for you. When I ask this to all the guests, at this moment, if you think about stillness and chaos, what does that bring up for you? An image, a metaphor? What does it mean to you at this moment?
It means a lived experience, Daniel. It's sort of, I have never been fuller in my life in the amount of things happening. And the only way of navigating through that is to come from a place of stillness. I know that. Or I am buffeted and thrown around, and that is exhausting and unhelpful, and it doesn't always end up in the right place, or I don't end up in the right place. I end up somewhere I shouldn't be. So I have to try and come back into the, I suppose, lucky me, I recognize that I have found stillness before. So I know it exists, and that's a lovely thing to know, to re-find. Going back to that sense of regular awareness of these things, finding the stillness is the point of, it's the alchemy between the being and the doing. And by having that, as I sit still here now with you, I'm about to go into a team conversation where I will be more doing, but can I bring that being stillness in with me? And that will help all of us navigate whatever it is we need to.
Thank you. Thank you for your wisdom, your love, your openness, your, the ability to join the dots and, share both practical but also beautiful philosophical, I would say, takeaways. For me personally, I know a lot of people who've seen this really appreciate this, Simon. And I want to leave you with, since you're going into a meeting, I just want to leave you with a saying from the Katha Upanishad, and also something that the Zen masters use. It says, when the mind is still, when the ego is still, when the intellect is still, when the self-will is still, that is the highest state of self-realization.
Well, may stillness be with you, Daniel.
May the stillness be with you. May the stillness be with everyone who's watching. Thank you all for watching if you're still here. I have this next one in a couple of weeks. I'm probably going to have someone from India, private equity investor, who's going to talk about channeling the soul of India. We've got conversation like this happening every 2 weeks, so please follow the page. Thank you for being here, and have a good day. Thank you, Simon.
Thanks, Daniel. Lots of love.
Take care. Bye.
Bye.